mean, nobody can say he created air or manufactured the water from the springs.
That's right.
Or the soil or the mineral resources, that we have today. These are gifts from God. And so the earlier we understand that the place of man from the Holy Book, when we understood that God created Adam, he was given a first mandate to tend the garden. And so the earlier we understand that the natural resources as gift from God, is important that religious leaders lead that advocacy for us to be able to take some climate action. So that's a good news to hear.
Amazing. Yeah. Great. Thank you for having you again in the studio. So we're discussing teaching climate action solutions for an evolving planet, and you just heard the voice of Mr. Timothy Ogenyi, who is a climate educator and senior climate policy analyst at the Society for Planet and Prosperity. And with him, we're going to be driving this conversation. We're going to be making meaningful discussions about these, and also ensure that you also listening to us will be able to drive climate action in your own capacity. Now, remember, you can also join the conversation if you're listening to us. And I have two questions for you listening to me right now. Do you think climate education in Nigeria is strong enough? And if not, what do you think should be done to improve it? I would love to hear from you. And the second question I have here for you is, in your community, do you have you noticed any action towards climate change? Have you noticed people doing anything towards climate change? If no, let me hear from you. And if yes, also let me hear from you. I believe you've been hearing some highlights, probably one or two people, mentioning climate change around you. Let us know how deep this has gone to you. Would love to hear from you. To join the conversation, you can call the number 0911 222 1055. I think I should take that slowly. Okay. The number is 0911 222 1055. And you can also call us on 0911 112 1055. All right, now back to my guest. So, would love to hear, how long have you been in this climate space? For some people, it's like a new phenomenon, something just climate changes, but people have been talking about this for years. Yeah, if you go on YouTube and then you search, you find out that people, you have people talking about this 7 years back, 10 years back, but some people are just finding out about this. So we'd love to hear, how long have you been in the climate space and what brought you here?
Okay, for someone that went to the university to study soil and environmental management.
Amazing.
And my specialization was in environmental management. So, but those days in school, I got into the university, Ebonyi State University to be precise, in 2004. I never wanted to read environmental management. Let's start with that. But that's where I found
That's for people who don't want to read environmental management.
Yes,
amazing.
And interestingly, when I graduated in 2009, and I found myself as a copper in Abuja, and I was sent to serve with NESRA, National Environmental Standard and Regulation Agency. So serving there and understanding what environmental management is, and also have a couple of work as a copper then with the Federal Ministry of Environment. The whole climate change was not as pronounced as it was then in 2011, 2012. But when I was done with service, I found myself, working within the space of what we know then as climate risk assessment. It's a key aspect of environmental and social impact assessment, which I'm a specialist on. So counts 2011 till now, about say 16, how many years, 2011 till now. That's how far I've been.
That's a long time.
But just like I said, as of then, what was more pronounced was more of environmental and social impact assessment. The issue of a climate risk assessment was not as pronounced, talk less of climate action. I give you also another example to show what has happened, maybe in a decade in Nigeria, putting it in context. It was not until 2001 that the then president, His Excellency Buhari, brought into law the Climate Change Act 2021. And the Climate Change Act in Nigeria, introduced the Nigerian states to begin to take issues of climate change policies and regulations a little more serious. And I can tell you right now, we have more than 11 states in Nigeria that have their own climate change policies.
Amazing.
So state governments are also beginning to realize that for us to make progress in terms of governance, even at the state level, there is need to also have a climate change policy.
Great.
But globally, of course, sometime in November, there will be COP30. COP30 means that this is the 30th meeting for that conference of parties to hold. And if this is a convention that holds annually, that's to tell you how back since 1992 when the Earth Conference in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Of course, that's why COP30 is also phenomenal, because it's taking us back to the origin of where this all started from. So it's been long that the whole climate change and policies has been upcoming, but right now we are beginning to see more pronounced action. I don't want to talk about what's happening in the US and their stand on climate change and climate policy, but just to say that we are beginning to see, because we're also seeing the impact is becoming more real. For every climate denier and anyone that don't want to believe in anything known as climate change, of course you wake up to see the scorching sun. I mean, you wake up to see the level of heat, you wake up to see the high temperature.
Talking about climate denial, how pronounced is this in our environment, in the Nigerian space especially?
I think we are beginning to see and understand that these are not just theoretical science.
That's right.
We are beginning to see, last year, we saw how flooding ravaged a couple of states in Nigeria. We are seeing farmers, complain about soil erosion. We are seeing the level of desertification and desert expansion in the north. And of course, just like I mentioned, the high level of temperature. So climate change impacts, as contextual and unique it is to every state in Nigeria, has become pronounced to anybody that denies that there is no climate change in quotes. The impact is here with us. So there is no playing around. Is climate change real in Nigeria,
or
to
not?
be specific or not?
So for those who are still denying, it's glaring and it's here, right? All right, so this is still Climate Fact File, and we are discussing teaching climate action solutions for an evolving planet. That was the voice of Mr. Timothy Ogenyi you just listened to. We'll take a break right now. Thank you for coming late again.
I can see all the harvest is ready, 'cause he told me so. It's green and it's all mine.
You want to relax now, yeah?
As the clouds go gray, on the walls of New York City, season's just beginning. Sunlight it hides the clouds make way.
So I have people watching me from YouTube. This is Climate Fact File. Hi, yeah, thank you. Thank you, sweetheart. Mwabweze Steven. Thank you so much. Do you like Poland? Yes, I like Poland. I like every country.
Lord of the harvesters.
Thank you. So you're listening to Climate Fact File. I'm actually in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you. God bless you. Yeah, so I'm actually in Abuja, Nigeria. Are you Igbo? Yes, I'm Nigerian. One boy is Steven is asking me if I'm Igbo. My name is Ifi Onyekwere. Yes, I'm Ifi Onyekwere, and you're listening to me from Abuja. The program is Climate Fact File. Yeah, and I have a guest in the studio here. His name is Mr. Timothy Ogenyi. He's actually a climate educator and senior climate policy analyst of Society for Planet and Prosperity. That's okay. He said that's Igbo name. Yes, I'm Igbo. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for joining live. We're actually on a break right now, and I'll go live soon on radio. Thank you, Steven. Are you married? Do you like me? Oh my God. I'm not answering that question. That's private. That's private. This is not Climate Fact File. This has nothing to do with Climate Fact File. He said yes a lot, so hala. Okay, so if you like me, just keep listening to my show. That's all. Thank you. Let's go live. Come on. Thank you, Steven. Okay, I'm going live now. I'm going live now. Okay. All right, you're still listening to Climate Fact File here on People's 105.5 FM, and we are discussing teaching climate action, sustainable solutions for an evolving planet, and I have my amazing guest in the studio here with me. All right, so let's go into the topic of the day. Mr. Timothy, are we together?
Yes.
Great to have you in the studio again.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would love to ask, why is climate education so important in tackling the global climate crisis? And, what are the key areas that should be prioritized in teaching this? Because we know you're a climate educator. Why is this important? And what are the key factors that is really important for us as a people while we're carrying out this activity?
Okay, great question. Firstly, the first question is, why is education even important in the first place?
That's right, climate education.
Besides even adding climate. So we all know that ignorance is not an excuse for not doing the right thing.
That's right.
The more we know of what to do, the more we have solutions of what to do.
That's right.
So climate education only raises the awareness of what are the right, proper climate actions that need to be taken. We just established a few minutes ago that the impact of climate change is real, and we can see that around us. So climate education brings to bear what we need to start doing as an individual, as a corporate organization, as a subnational, at a regional level, at local level, at national level, and even what happens or needs to be happening at the global level. So climate education not only raises some awareness or provides the orientation of what needs to be done as regards climate action, it also equips us and empowers with the sense of belonging, to take responsibility for nature. Um, the proliferation of greenhouse gases, and these greenhouse gases are released mainly by human factors.
Great, yes.
Beyond the natural causes of what we may want to refer
We also
to
have our parts.
Whether it's CO2, NO2, CH4, sorry if you're not a scientist student.
Well, that's what we're coming to that, because people have to understand these things.
Okay.
On and on,
okay,
yeah.
So whether it's carbon dioxide, whether it's methane, whether it's nitrogen oxides, whether it's nitrous oxides, whether it's the CFCs or VOCs, some of these greenhouse gases, okay, accumulates in the atmosphere. What happens is this: because of the release of these greenhouse gases,
okay,
the sun rays that usually hit the surface of the atmosphere and reflect back when the sunlight, that is nature, when sunlight hits the earth, the atmosphere, it reflects it. A high portion of it is reflected back. And then just a minimum enough for us to have the heat that will help our metabolism and all that. But because of these greenhouse gases, they form like a blanket of the atmosphere, trapping the heat, the sun rays that should usually hit and is reflected back.
Now, what you're actually explaining is actually the science behind all of this.
Yes, and that is where we put some of the priorities to make us understand what causes this climate change, which is the global warming, which is as a result of these greenhouse gases release. So when we understand what releases this gas, the man that easily picks up a tire and burn on the streets,
yes,
without understanding the level of that flame, that black smoke is seeing, the flame of that CO2, without understanding the impact of that releasing that greenhouse gas, CO2 at that point, without understanding, the industries, that have their exhaust channeled into the atmosphere and just flame, without understanding those little impacts, those little activities that release these greenhouse gases, we might not understand what leads to this, in quotes, warming and high level of heat as an example of one of the impact of climate change. So the earlier we understand how the little activities we take contribute in releasing either the greenhouse gas or contribute in endangering nature, our natural resources, that will ordinarily protect us from some of these so-called impacts of climate change, the earlier for us.
Okay. So I would also want to, when you were actually explaining this, you mentioned, sorry if you're not a science student. Now, this is it. That's even one of the reasons why when people mention stuff about climate change, there are some very key words that you might want to find it very technical to break down. There was a time I was even trying to, break down some of these climate change, words and terminologies into pidgin English. And you have to be so careful so that you don't. I'm sure when someone hears me, this is a lady saying, "Sure, of course I speak pidgin English," and they speak pidgin English. Yeah. So now, how do we bridge this gap between climate science?
But did you get the pidgin English for what is climate?
Of course, I had to reach out to a lot of experts and all like that. I hope I'm still in track while breaking this down. I hope I'm not, leaving out some important facts here. So now, how do we bridge this gap between climate science and real world action through education? Because people can only take action when you understand what exactly is being said. If you tell these people about greenhouse gas emission, you tell it to people in the rural communities, for crying out loud, they'll just if at all they'll listen to you, they're just going to listen to you because they want to pay attention. Yeah. But we're going beyond just listening, or we're going beyond just, we just want to hear you, to taking action. So how do we actually bridge this gap between climate science and real world action through education?
Okay, thank you. I think, let's start with the rural communities. I think climate adaptation speaks to how the rural community.
You know what? I think we have to start from here now.
Okay, what's
Now,
climate adaptation?
thank you.
That's what I'm trying to break it
Okay.
down. Okay, so it speaks to how rural communities begin to adjust, either in their lifestyle, either with their livelihoods, activities, begin to adjust to build climate resilience. Climate resilience is being able to survive within the impacts that climate change has created. It's a fact that rural communities, in fact, Africa as a whole contributes as minute as about 3% to the global greenhouse emission. And that argument says that Africa, or even the rural communities, because they don't have the industries that release these greenhouse gases, they have minimum anthropogenic or human activities that causes most of this global warming or climate change impact. However, they bear much of the brunt. Much of the impact of climate change is being witnessed at the rural level. So the truth is that if there is an education that needs to be done at the local level, it is more of how to build climate resilience, how to is about the climate adaptation.
Yes.
You know, I give an example of such kind of education: climate smart agriculture. So at the rural level, we have more farmers, the local farmers, and whether it is soil erosion, whether it's flooding, they also witness the impacts of climate change. I mean, unpredictable weather, the weather pattern is not stable. I'm not sure of the rainy season or the dry season. It affects their decision in terms of farming, when to harvest, when to plant. You know, so they are also impacted. You know, I just mentioned whether it's the high level of temperature or soil erosion or flooding, they are also impacted. But how do farmers, local farmers to be specific, begin to build climate resilience and adapt to climate smart agriculture? Having variety of climate resistant crops, you know, based on the temperature, based on the climate impact, how to begin to plant crops that are also resistant to some of this climate impact. So what's the education that you carry to the local level right now as regards to climate change?
Yes.
For example, would be how to engage in sustainable agriculture.
And how to understand what is being said too.
Yes. Okay, so in understanding what is being said, just like the best we could do is to give them an example of what's happening to their farming system.
Do you know, I feel like if these people do not really get the implication of their actions, they will not take out actions. Because I'm trying to you know, react how the Nigerian system works.
Yeah.
If they don't tell you that
Yeah.
that if you don't register your BVN, your account will be locked.
Yeah.
You won't go.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like if people really do not
understand
exactly
more, so that they can begin to adjust. And that's what I'm saying. The local farmer might not understand that this is climate change happening to his farming, you know, condition. He might not understand that the flooding that he saw wiping away his crop products. He might not understand that the cattle migrating from a faraway state or a faraway distance into his farmland is also climate change, because there is desert encroachment and desert expansion at a particular area. So those cattle, those cows needs to feed.
Exactly.
And they are migrating to you know, to his farm. You know, so he might not understand the conflicts that also happen at the community level, also climate change driven, when people migrate to places because of the impact of climate. I just mentioned one of such impact: desert encroachment and desert expansion, desertification or drought that is happening at a particular area and is driving people away to a particular area. So when we begin to understand that some of this common, I just mentioned, conflict between herders herders and farmers,
yes,
is also attributed to climate change. When we begin to understand how this is interconnected, the conflict, the peace situation, the security issue, and of course even the mental health issues are also interconnected with climate change.
I think we're going to take that after this, sets that we're actually going to go into right now. So it's time for us to hit the streets to, get to hear from regular people what they know and think about climate change, from the young to the elderly. We're gathering voices from all walks of life to understand how climate issues resonate with everyday Nigerians. Yeah, we really want to know what people think about climate change. So the questions we actually are asking the people, we want to know their level of understanding as regards climate change, and if not, what needs to be done about this. So let's hear from the people on the streets.
Very important because effects is glaring, and students need to know what is responsible for climate change and how to mitigate it. And you have
So
to
you
look
react
at
to this
the
after.
issue of desert encroachment.
You can hear,
Yeah.
Look at the ocean enlargement and encroachment. Look at the frustration.
Increase
Look at
volume.
gas emission. All these things are things that give rise to climate change. And if they are being taught and the effects, and at the same time be taught about how to mitigate it, I think it will be a good knowledge, and we'll have a very good environment to live in future.
Climate change is the weather condition of a particular area. And I think you should be taught in school, right? Because
just focus, because you're going to react to
more
this.
about
So people are reacting to.
help them to know what to do when it occurs.
Yeah, so Mr. Timothy, people are reacting to what they think about.
That they will know what to do about it.
Okay.
Weather condition of a place.
Okay.
And it should be taught in school so that it will
Thank you for joining
the
me.
young ones
Thank
growing
you.
up.
Thank you.
So when they grow up and go to climate change,
Thank you for joining
whenever
me.
they
This is
think
Climate
about
Fact
it,
File, News
it has
FM
been taught in school
here,
before,
and I'm live
and
on
know something
radio.
about
Thank you
it.
for joining
And
me on
it will make
YouTube.
them not to look as if they are coming from a local.
All right, so we heard the voices of people on the streets, and we'd love to hear from you too. If you're just joining us, this is People's 105.5 FM, and you're listening to Climate Fact File, where we're discussing teaching climate action, solutions for an evolving planet. And we have in the studio a guest, Mr. Timothy Ogenyi, who is a climate educator and senior climate policy analyst at Society for Planet and Prosperity. So we'd love to hear from you. I'm opening the phone lines. The number to call is 0911-222-1055, and you can also reach us on 0911-112-1055. Now, the two questions I have for you is, in your community, have you noticed any action towards climate change? Yes or no? I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear what community that actually is. Now, the second question I have here for you is, do you think climate education in Nigeria is strong enough? And if not, what do you think should be done to improve it? Do you think climate education in Nigeria is strong enough? And you need to be very honest. If it's not strong enough in your area, we have a climate educator here, so he could relate it to some of his colleagues and let's know what to do in your community. And that's why we really want to hear from you, because climate change is not a distant issue. It's here and right here with us right now. Yeah, so it's something we really need to be cautious and have a discussion around. So the first question, do you think climate education in Nigeria is strong enough? And what do you think we need to be done, needs to be done to improve it? The second question, in your community, have you noticed any action towards climate change? I'd love to hear from you. Remember, the number to call is 0911-222-1055. You can also call us on 0911-112-1155. 112-1055. Let me take that again. 0911-112-1055. So I'd love to hear from you. All right. So back to the reactions of people who spoke earlier. How would you react to their voices?
I think it's becoming very obvious that climate education is a priority now.
That's right.
I can tell you that even at the government level, I think there is a conversation ongoing on mainstreaming climate education into the school curriculum. And at the Society for Planet and Prosperity, we came up with a handbook co-created with other key stakeholders within the climate change, climate education
space. Yes.
And that handbook, in as much as it encourages climate actions, what needs to be done, especially at the students or individual level. It also provides a guide of what should be communicated when we talk of climate change to the students. So I said all that to say this. From the reaction you got from the streets,
yes,
you can see that people realize the need for our students, the children.
And I feel like even the adults are also very concerned about it, because one Mwabwe is Stephen here online saying it's not strong enough here in Anambra, and I would love to have that education. So even people who are not students too. So how are we spreading this?
Yes, okay. I was trying to talk about the handbook that we launched that was actually meant for secondary school students. But beyond that, just like I said, from the federal level to the state level, I said, for example, from Anambra, we don't have a climate change policy in Anambra State. I can tell you that Anambra is not one of the states. So we have a couple of states in Nigeria, about 10 to 11 of them.
Well, why do we have some states with the climate policy and some don't have the climate policy?
I think is about understanding the climate governance. You should ask, why do we also have some states in Nigeria, for example, only two states in Nigeria have their ministry, their state ministry known as Environment and Climate Change. Only two states have the State Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. And some states also in Nigeria, I can tell you, don't have maybe the administrative structure that gives premiums or priority to climate change. So how many state governors have maybe a special assistance to the governor on climate change, or how many state governments have a committee on climate change at the state level? So the administrative structure too, in as much as at the federal level, there is a Climate Change Act, there is also need for state governments, and that's one of the things we did at the Society for Planet and Prosperity, where we ranked the climate governance performance of the state government as regards climate change. And we launched that report last year, in speaking to how state governments perform when it comes to climate change. So I would want to also ask my friend from Anambra to also have a copy of that report. Is online. If you search for Society for Planet and Prosperity, I worked and led the team with the guidance of Professor Chukwumeri Jokereke to do that study, that project where we looked at what is happening at every state in Nigeria and had that climate governance performance ranking. And that was preceded with the mapping of climate impact policies and action plan at the subnational level, which was also another study we did in 2023. So there are studies which we have done from the Society for Planet and Prosperity that shows that at the state level, which is where most of the climate governance action should be coming from, much still needs to be done. You know, I can tell you that Nigeria as a government is in compliance either from the Paris Agreement to other key regulations as regards climate change. As a country, Nigeria is in compliance, but at the state level, which is just like you mentioned, the local farmers at the community level, where we have more of this climate change impact.
Exactly.
You know, so the state government also needs to either by having the climate change policies or begin to put in place some other contextual climate adaptation or mitigation, as the case may be, or projects as regards climate change that begin to. Now let's see in the state government, how many state government have the allocation of budgets that addresses some of the climate change impacts in their states. So is beyond the climate education. It also incorporates the climate finance, it incorporates the climate governance now, and the action that needs to be done either at the subnational, local, and then even at the individual level.
Great. Thank you for that contribution. And would you say there are challenges you've actually faced, as a climate educator here in Nigeria? What are your biggest challenges?
The biggest, it will be, the confrontations from climate deniers, those that believe that tell those climate change stuff to the West.
Wow.
They have a point that most of the climate change issues of global warming are actually more the percentage of the contribution, whether it's greenhouse gases, or are actually coming from the industrialized and first world, industrial countries and first world. However, we bear much of the impacts.
Yeah.
So we need to adjust using the climate adaptation projects.
So for those of you who are in this category of still denying, we are in denial, I believe with some of the points that my guest here has made, we're actually causing this awakening. We need to start waking up and then taking responsible action towards climate change. So right about now, it's time to run the spotlight on additional voices that matter in the fight against climate change. Now in this segment, we'll hear from key stakeholders, leaders, experts, activists, sharing their perspective on the pressing issues of climate change, from international organizations to grassroots movements. We're bringing you the sound bites that are shaping voices and inspiring action towards a sustainable future. Right about now, we're going to listen to the voice of Honorable Samuel Onwigbo. He's actually the sponsor of Nigeria's Climate Change Act. So let's hear him.
The progress. And the reason I say so is because the president himself has been driving
Can you listen?
most of our climate actions. And do not also forget that by the provisions of the law, the president is the chairman of the National Council.
Sorry,
Please touch that button.
When
Touch that
I was
button.
talking about partners subnationals, we were deliberate.
You're going to react to
Sure that
Honorable.
the subnationals were captured in the climate change law, such that
It's because you came late, that's why.
I like when I talk, I'm hearing myself.
Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
You're a media person. Do you know that when you talk,
Speak to me. Listen to me.
there's something you did now.
You're going to react to him.
I know myself well.
that is to ensure that climate change does not start out.
Because you came late, so you just disorganized everything.
Apart from the little grass around the villa, the areas where these things happen are in the villages.
So you're not
So for me,
I was
the
hearing
president exercising.
It was from here, or maybe from there.
I was hearing
Maybe I'll go back to 2023.
If you had come early, we would have set it on time.
In November
Am I lying?
of that year, when he presented his first budget for the National Assembly. If you go through that budget, you see
So I can't see your number. You said I should call you. I can't see your number.
Directed his appointees to ensure that when we go to Dubai, I was in 2020, we should look for ways.
It's not easy to be a fine girl.
friends.
I can't see your number. I cannot see your number.
By inaugurating, the Carbon Council where he appointed the DG.
I'm still live, but I can't see your number.
And also the head of the FI.
No, this is YouTube. This is not.
Out there. And then we have the Evergreen City. We have so many other actions.
Yeah, you can say positive things. It doesn't have to be.
Abu Dhabi. Also.
Can you imagine?
I don't need to add to what Oga said.
Yeah, so just say you just want to side by side. Just.
Which is supposed to be core,
I can't see it. Maybe you type it again, then I'll say it. I really cannot say it.
In line with the provisions of the law. So for me, we are taking the steps. Yes, it's not been easy. It's not been rosy.
If you type it to come up, I'll see it. I can't see it here.
Council starting off just about 2 or 3 years ago to be able to coordinate everything about climate change in Nigeria.
It's live.
As a law. So that you have proper coordination and not for people to be operating in silos. You heard what she said. Well, we're doing all these, talking of
and
where they
whatever you're saying, say it briefly because we have to go. Yeah, just react to it a bit.
Lawmaking requires all hands being on board. But when we thought about what we dream, I think gradually we are becoming clear. The responsibilities are becoming very well defined and carefully executed. Also, when Mr. President is the one driving and showing leadership, so I'm encouraged that.
All right, so that was the voice of Honorable Samuel Onigbo, sponsor of Nigeria's Climate Change Act. How would you react to that in just a minute?
He has done well, him and the team, in having giving birth to the Climate Change Act 2021. It's believed that the contents and what that act has for us as a nation will begin to be operationalized and come to limelight. One of the things in the act, section 15, it speaks about having the climate change fund. And so, if we have that fund, climate finance is a key climate action that will help begin to have, for us to have some of the climate solutions that we need. So the climate change funds either operationalized at the national level and of course operationalized at the state level, we help drive some of the climate solutions. So how many states also in Nigeria is also domesticating the climate change acts? That's another thing. Can state government also pick the climate change acts 2021 and also domesticate that at the state level? So the good contents of that act, we are yet to begin to see the operationalization of it, whether it's the climate change fund or other contents. I think the public also needs to pick a copy of that act. Is available, is a public document. Pick a copy of the Climate Change Act and see what responsibility or what role can you play as an individual in the climate change solution space.
Great. Thank you so much for that contribution. And unfortunately, I don't know, the time is flying today. Like, it's really running. Was it because you came? All right. Thank you so much. If you're listening to us, thank you so much. And to my amazing guests, thank you for your valuable insight. And to everyone that has contributed, if you're listening and probably you want to also continue the conversation on X, you can follow me at Ife Inspires on X. That's format Twitter, yeah. At Ife Inspires, we'll continue the conversation there. And of course, I'll be here same time next week for Climate Fact File. And to my amazing producer, the executive producer of the show, Charles Kalu, thank you so much. And remember, climate change is not just a future challenge, it's a present reality. And each one of us has a role to play in shaping a more sustainable future. Remember, small actions today can lead to big changes tomorrow. And I also have great people beside me here today. Great guys beside me today, Miracle Festus, and one amazing guy here. Thank you so much. All right, so let's take all we've learned today and apply it to our daily lives. Join me next time for Climate Fact File here on People's 105.5 FM. I am Ife Onyekwere, and until next time, bye. Sorry, what did you safe.